All right, let's just jump right into this, shall we? Today, we are setting off on a rapid-fire journey to neutrally map out 15 distinct global belief systems. We'll be unpacking the data, the histories, and the core philosophies that literally shape our world, all based on the incredibly detailed sources we've compiled for you. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this explainer, so let's get to it. Now, how does humanity find meaning in the universe? Honestly, it's the ultimate puzzle, right? Across thousands of years, literally billions of people have answered this one profound question through totally distinct rituals, sacred texts, and complex philosophies. What we're about to look at today is the sheer, incredible diversity of those answers.
To keep things moving, we've broken this massive topic down into 5 easy-to-follow chapters. We'll start with the 4 global giants, then explore ancient roots and covenants, Eastern philosophies of harmony, seekers of unity, and finally, modern spiritual movements.
Chapter 1, the 4 global giants. That's Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. We're starting off with the monumental belief systems that shape the daily lives, cultures, and worldviews of the vast majority of people on the planet today. When you look at the sheer, staggering scale of the top 3, it's pretty incredible. Christianity leads the pack with over 2 billion followers. Rooted in Judea with the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, its followers look to the Bible and branch largely into Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant traditions. Right on its heels is Islam at 1.9 billion. Emerging from 7th century Mecca, Muslims follow the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, revere the Quran, and are primarily grouped into Sunni and Shia branches. And then we have Hinduism with a solid billion followers. This one is over 3,000 years old, originating in India, and it relies on ancient texts like the Vedas and Upanishads, with most followers believing in a universal soul called Brahman. Zooming in on Islam for a second, its core practice is all about submission to God's will through the 5 pillars. It's actually a highly practical framework for daily life. We're talking about faith in one God, the daily commitment of praying 5 times a day, giving charity to the poor, fasting during the month of Ramadan, and making that once-in-a-lifetime pilgrimage to Mecca. It is an incredibly organized structure, really designed to instill empathy, self-discipline, and a deep sense of justice and modesty. Moving on to our 4th giant, Buddhism, which was founded by Siddhartha Gautama in 5th century BCE India. So the crucial takeaway here is that, unlike the Abrahamic faiths, Buddhism doesn't actually center on a creator god. Instead, it offers an 8-fold path to end human suffering and teaches the concept of anatta, which basically means no soul. And as Buddhism spread, it branched out in some really beautiful ways. Theravada took on a monastic focus in Southeast Asia, Mahayana emphasized compassion over in East Asia, and Vajrayana in Tibet heavily utilizes rituals and mantras. Now, this brings us to a fascinating shared concept. Both Hinduism and Buddhism are deeply focused on escaping the cycle of samsara. Think of samsara as this continuous, repeating loop of birth, death, and rebirth that's shaped by your karma. Whether it's called moksha in Hinduism, which is about seeking spiritual union with the divine, or nirvana in Buddhism, representing a state completely beyond suffering, the ultimate human desire here is liberation. Okay, Chapter 2, Ancient Roots and Covenants, covering Judaism, Zoroastrianism, and Jainism. Here, we're shifting our focus to the much older, foundational faiths that deeply influence the giants we were just talking about. Let's take a quick trip back in time. Hinduism's early Vedic roots push way back to 1500 BCE, but fast forward to 1000 BCE, and we see 2 massive shifts happening at the exact same time. Judaism forms its 3,000-year-old monotheistic covenant through figures like Abraham and Moses, governed by the Torah and the mitzvot. Right alongside that, over in ancient Persia, Zoroastrianism emerges under the prophet Zoroaster, guided by the Avesta texts. And then a bit later, right around 500 BCE, Jainism takes its distinct shape in India. Zoroastrianism is super interesting because it views the universe as a literal cosmic battleground. On one side, you have the supreme god of light, order, and truth, Ahura Mazda. Pitted against him is the destructive chaos and deception of Angra Mainyu. Humans are actively called to choose sides in this fight through good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. What's absolutely incredible here is how this relatively small faith, whose modern followers, the Parsis, still maintain these beautiful eternal flame temples, profoundly influenced later Abrahamic concepts like heaven, hell, and angels.
Contrast that epic cosmic battle with Jainism. Founded by Mahavira, it's completely anchored by the concept of ahimsa. This is the principle of nonviolence, but taken to its absolute highest degree. Jains believe every living thing has a soul, and they show such intense dedication to this that they practice strict vegetarianism, and some even wear masks to avoid accidentally inhaling and thereby harming microscopic organisms. The whole point is to keep bad karma from trapping the soul in that endless cycle of rebirth. Chapter 3. Eastern Philosophies of Harmony, exploring Taoism, Confucianism, and Shinto. We are shifting geographically over to East Asia now, where belief systems function just a bit differently, taking their root primarily in the harmonization of society and nature.
So while the Western worldview typically focuses on a distinct creator god and personal salvation, these Eastern traditions are much more about flowing with natural rhythms and societal balance. Take Taoism, for instance. Originating in ancient China with Laozi and the Tao Te Ching, the end goal isn't salvation at all. It is inner balance. It's all about the yin and the yang. It's about moving like water, flexible but incredibly strong, so you can align yourself with the unseen natural force of the universe, the Taos. And if Taoism is all about natural harmony, Confucianism is all about social harmony. Founded in China around 500 BCE by Confucius, the core idea here is that a well-ordered society doesn't come from formal worship. It comes from strict moral behavior. Everything in Confucianism hinges on 5 mutual duties. We're talking about things like filial piety between a parent and child, or justice and loyalty between a ruler and subject. It's a highly structured framework for respect and civic responsibility that honestly still fundamentally shapes East Asian society today. Moving over to Japan, we find Shinto. Now, unlike the others we've discussed, Shinto has no single founder and absolutely no rigid dogma. Instead, it is entirely centered on kami, these sacred, sometimes benevolent, sometimes mischievous spiritual forces found in nature. Followers aren't trying to control the kami, they just want to live in balance with them. You see this practice in action through matsuri, purification rituals at beautiful shrines, which are famously marked by those iconic torii dates that visually separate the everyday world from the sacred. Chapter 4. The Seekers of Unity, looking at Sikhism and the Bahá'í Faith. Let's dive into a couple of faiths that actively make it their core mission to unify diverse peoples and bridge different spiritual traditions. First up is Sikhism, founded in 15th century India by Guru Nanak. Guided eventually by 10 gurus and their sacred text, the Guru Granth Sahib, Sikhs believe in one formless God and champion radical equality. You see this most famously in the Langar, which is a free community meal open to absolutely anyone, no questions asked. And this beautifully translates into personal practice too. Initiated Sikhs of the Khalsa order wear the 5 Ks. From uncut hair to a steel bracelet to a short sword, these are constant physical reminders of their duty to live with humility, courage, and to protect the oppressed. Then we have the 19th century Persian Bahá'í Faith, which introduces this really fascinating concept called progressive revelation. Baha'is believe there is only one God, but that this God sends different messengers adapted to the specific needs of each era in human history. So it goes from Abraham to Buddha to Jesus to Muhammad, and finally culminates with their founder, Baha'u'llah. Guided by the Kitab-i-Aqdas and operating completely without clergy, their ultimate goal is literally to build one unified global family. How cool is that? Chapter 5. Modern Spiritual Movements. Spiritism, Caodaism, and Tenrikyo. In this final chapter, we're going to explore how movements born much more recently in the 19th and 20th centuries synthesize older traditions in some incredibly unique ways. Let's take Spiritism, for example. Founded in the 19th century by French educator Allan Kardec, it attempts to bridge faith and reason. It actually operates without traditional churches. Instead, it uses mediums to communicate with spirits. Now, the goal here isn't magic. It's to blend Christian ethics with the concept of reincarnation, constantly pushing the soul toward ultimate moral improvement. Today, it remains a massively popular practice, particularly over in Brazil. Next up is Caodaism, born in Vietnam in the 1920s after a civil servant had a vision during a seance. This faith is basically the ultimate blend. It actively works to unify global religions into one single divine truth. Followers worship in these highly ornate, incredibly colorful temples, and they revere traditional figures like Buddha and Jesus. But get this, they also look for guidance from the spirits of cultural icons, like the French writer Victor Hugo. I mean, it is a true surprising synthesis of Eastern and Western thought.
Finally, we have Tenrikyo, founded in 19th century Japan by a woman named Nakayama Miki, whom followers actually revered as a living shrine. The really crucial point here is its distinct departure from Western concepts of sin. Tenrikyo explicitly rejects the idea of eternal punishment. Instead, the whole focus is on living the joyous life. They believe that suffering simply comes from a misuse of the mind, and their practice is all about clearing away that misuse through gratitude, mutual help, and just cheerful living.
Which brings us to the very end of our journey today, and it leaves us with a pretty powerful question to ponder. Despite vastly different texts, rituals, and geographic origins, isn't our ultimate pursuit of empathy, balance, and meaning essentially the exact same thing? Across all 15 of these incredible systems, humanity's drive to understand its place in the cosmos, to cultivate justice, and to find peace is just this beautiful shared constant. I really want you to think about that as you go about your day. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.